925 naira only is for statutory transfers. 14 trillion 317 billion 142 million 689,548 naira only is for debt service. 13 trillion 64 billion 9 million 682,673 naira only is for recurrent non-debt service expenditure, while the sum of 23 trillion 963 billion 251 million 624,250 naira only is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2025, SB 681, third reading.
I must be very careful so that I will not say that this money is too much for me. A bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, the total sum of 54 trillion 990 billion 165 million 355,366 naira only, of which 3 trillion 645 billion 761 million 358,925 naira only is for statutory transfers. 14 trillion 317 billion 142 million 689,548 naira only is for debt service. 13 trillion 64 billion 9 million 682,673 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 23 trillion 963 billion 251 million 624,250 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2024. This bill for 2025. Of December, this bill is read a third time and passed. Let me thank the chairman of the Committee on Appropriation, Olami Lekon Yayi, and all the members of the Appropriation Committee, who are almost 2/3 of the Senate, including all the chairmen of our various committees, for working so hard to ensure probity, accountability, and prudent expenses of the federal government of Nigeria.
Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, the total sum of 54,990,165,355,396 naira only, of which 3,645,733 transfers, 14,317,142,689,548 naira, 588 naira, 14,317,140.
Well, there are 330,000 and trillion. You did hear the trillion, Abi? Anyway, if you want to get to know more on how this supposed appropriation act or the appropriation conversation is done, then you get to see a lot of misappropriation of this money, misallocation, misapplication. And the budget is so padded right now. And once we begin to dig into what they just passed, you realize that more than 4 trillion naira has been added, and that is going to be for fake projects, non-existing projects, and trillions of naira. Yeah, they are also servicing the debt with over 16 trillion, even though they are using this sort of like confusing names for them, so to say. Service debt, statutory transfer, that is the money they expect to share and all that. So you have a budget that is a budget of devaluation, a budget that sounds so big, but it is so little, and a budget that is, riddled with fake projects, money that they are just going to not only just allocate, but they're going to share, and it's going to disappear. And they will do it again next year, and they will do it again the year after, and the year after, and the year after, because that's what they do. Copy and paste, and money is allocated, and you never get to see what they use the money for. No, really. You never get to see that. And that's their budget, Another thing that trended this week is the issue of USAID. I think it's called the United States of America International Development. That is a USAID. Now, their job, from what we know, USAID employs over 14,000 staff, and they have more than 26,000, over 14,000 staff in the US. And they also have more than 26,000 staff all over the world. So Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and the Doge, I call them Doge. I don't know why. I mean, that's what I call that. I think they are called Doge. I've not actually heard anybody's called them that, so that I can know what it's called. So I just call it the way it's written, or the abbreviation of it's Doge. So it's Doge or Doge. DOGE, Department of Government Expenses, I think it's called. Expenditure. So their job is to look for any wastage in the government finances here in the US. And from what the Donald Trump campaign was built on, American first, you know what I mean? So America acts like they are the world police. The reason why America is so generous, right, is because it gives them the advantage to be involved in making decisions or taking decisions or influencing decisions across the world. It's a huge one. The United Nations, America is the major financier. World Health Organization, America is the major financier. World Education, America. You see, all this, America is always like there. And the purpose is to make sure that not only that the countries that make up the United Nations, right? Not only that they are all there to do the Americans' bidding, not all of them, but majority. So America sort of have these developmental agendas and what have you scattered all over this world, more than 180 countries. That's what we had. And their fund goes into, funding agriculture, funding healthcare, funding education. I mean, constructing water system for the most disadvantaged communities all over the world. So these are great stuff, right? But, if you want to discredit I don't know if I should use the word discredit, however, but if you really want to get rid of, what do you call it, something, you need to punch a hole, okay? It is like you need to find some debt. So Americans are always complaining of them being abandoned while billions of their money is spent. They have no idea where their money is being spent to, but they shall know that they have junkies, they have drug addicts, they have homeless people, they have, Americans who don't have any access to healthcare, this and that. You get like they can't afford it. But billions, hundreds of billions of American dollars goes abroad every year. So Donald Trump and Elon Musk's Doge or Doge group decided to find where this waste, what they call the wastages, American first, not the rest of the world first. That was when the USAID came under their search or their beam light. Now, what did they find? They said they found that apart from all the good things that USAID has done for years now, for more than 40 years, all over the world, but there are some certain things they've spent money on. And none of this is in any way should be part of their, part of their goal. For example, funding opposition rebels, and then giving them money to topple government or change regime change in some countries, forcing this LGBTQ stuff on some countries and punishing the countries that said no, and giving conditions before you give them aid. All of this, which they believe have led to a lot of manipulations all over the world. I don't want to be kind of listening to all those things again, okay? But the part that caught majority of Nigerians' attention is when one of the supposed Americans, congressman, his name is Perry, by the way. So he was reading from the Doge report, which was submitted to the House because they are probing the USAID. And that's why when Donald Trump suspended their money, right, it's automatically triggered a panic all over the world. Because guess what? There are so many NGOs all over the world, including Nigeria, whose funding comes from USAID. In fact, it's on record that in the last 10 years alone, USAID has given over $9 billion to NGOs in Nigeria. Different NGOs, girl child education, safety for girl child, what do you call that thing again? Sanitary pad. Is that what you call it? Sanitary pad for young girls who cannot afford, malaria treatment from mosquito, and all kind of other things that they have been involved in healthcare, in education, in commerce trade, where they give people money to start business, I think, right? Perry now said, from the report they have received, they discovered that USAID an American government agency has been involved. Okay, I think USAID is a United States Agency for International Development, I think, USAID. That is the right one, I think. So Perry said something, and he said they have, Dutch discovered that they've used American money to fund terrorists abroad. There are those who believe that Perry is known to be a kite flyer. They even call him a liar. That he's made some outlandish statements in the past that were never true. But the difference between whatever Perry said before and now is that Perry is actually reading a supposed Doge report on what USAID spent money on. He's not making that out himself, I think. Oh, let me play it for you. Listen.
Who gets some of that money? Does that name ring a bell to anybody in the room? Because your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, ISIS Khorasan, terrorist training camps. That's what it's funding. If you think that the program under Operation Enduring Sentinel entitled Women's Scholarship Endowment, which receives $60 million annually, or the Young Women Lead, which gets about $5 million annually, is going to women who, by the way, if you read the Inspector General's report, is telling you that the Taliban does not allow women to speak in public. Yet somehow you're believing, and American people are supposed to believe, that this money is going for the betterment of the women in Afghanistan. It is not. You are funding terrorism, and it's coming through USAID. And it's not just Afghanistan, because Pakistan's right next door. USAID spent $840 million in the last 20 years on Pakistan's education-related program. It includes $136 million to build 120 schools, of which there is zero evidence that any of them were built. Why would there be any evidence? The Inspector General can't get in to see them. But you know what? We doubled down and spent $20 million from USAID to create educational television programs for children unable to attend the physical school. Yeah, they can't attend it because it doesn't exist. You paid for it. Somebody else got the money. You are paying for terrorism. This has got to end. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
And Nigerians reacted straight up. Like all this money, they might come out like, on paper, they look like, oh, that looks legit. But when you begin to kind of probe it further, you're like, no, this doesn't look legit. And then automatically they believe that this money that were claimed to be spent in the terror-prone areas, they are not spent on the people. They were spent in funding terrorism. A very big one for those of us who are still alive. Yesterday, I said something about this, right? And I said the role that Barack Obama played, as well as his government in Nigeria. Somebody came on and they commented and said, I don't know if you are watching or you that person, I can't remember your name. Because I know the comment is probably gone now. I wish I had I picked on your name somehow so that I could possibly just use you as an example. Hang on, let me see if I can get the comments right. Give me a sec. Okay. Your claims about American sabotage of the security situation in Nigeria is false at best. Nigeria does not serve any geopolitical interest for the United States. You have no evidence to buttress your claims. What would they gain by sabotaging Nigeria's security? I beg, make una blame una leaders for the state of your country and nobody else. Because there are so many people who felt that way. He said, I had no evidence when the evidence abound. I have evidence to show that the American government under Barack Obama interfered in Nigeria political process in order to have an end predetermined result, which they finally got. And that end predetermined result is to truncate whatever progress Nigeria was making, because these are facts. These are not conjectures. They are not things made up. They are facts. They may be hard for you to accept. So what then is their gain? Well, let me ask you, what is the gain of America attacking Libya, NATO attacking Libya, taking out Muammar Gaddafi,